Hey everyone, so in this video we're going to take a look at how to make a game like the watermelon game in Unity. I think it's actually called suika game because it's Japanese, and I believe suika is the word for watermelon. This is a particularly popular game with VTubers, so if you watch any gameplay from VTubers, you've probably seen one, more, or all of them playing this game. It seems to have been really popular the last 2 weeks. And it's really just a variation of match 3 or match 4. In this case, you're matching two of the same fruit. It becomes a larger of a different fruit. You match two of those fruits and it becomes a larger of another fruit, so on and so forth until you get to the watermelon. Now, in that game, they use 11 fruits. I'm probably not going to use 11 because I don't want to make this like a really long video and I don't want to waste your time. The bottom line is if I show you the coding for like 5 or 6, it's just rinse and repeat at that point, okay? So let's see how much we get done and how interested you are in seeing more of this. So my normal disclaimers. First of all, this is a way to do it. I'm not saying this is the best way. I'm not saying this is the only way, and it's certainly not the most performant way. But for a game like this, I'm not worried about performance. It's not going to be resource intensive. Second of all, please do not be turned off by the fact that I'm using pre-made images. These are just PNGs. There's absolutely no coding attached to them yet. You could literally draw your own images in MS Paint or whatever you want, and you'll get exactly the same effect, okay? So these are just PNGs. There's no coding associated with it. Okay, so let's get started. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start by dragging a few of these images into the scene. That will add a few components to it, and then I'm going to add a couple more components, and then once I do that, I'm going to drag it back out of the scene, back into the asset area, and now you'll have a fully formed prefab, and once you have a prefab, you can then instantiate it, you can spawn it, and that's what we need to do for a game like this. So let's start with the cherries. So we'll drag this into the scene. That adds a transform and a sprite renderer components. And then we'll click on add components. This is the 2D environment, so make sure you're choosing physics 2D. And then we're going to choose polygon collider. As you can see, it surrounds the object. Now, if you want this to work a little more round-ish, you could always try, like, I believe this circle collider. Let's see. There is a circle collider, so if you don't want it to be too specific, if you want it to be kind of more roundish despite its shape, you could always use a circle collider. But we'll go with this shape. And then what we'll do with this is we'll then add component, physics 2D, and then we will add a rigid body. So that way we can add gravity. And it starts with gravity scale of 1. We'll leave it there for now. It's not like it's dropping a long distance, so I'm not too worried about the exact gravity, but you could always tweak that if you feel it drops too slow, too fast, or whatever. Okay, so now what we're going to do is if we take this and we drag it back here, you now have a prefab. So it has all those attributes, and now we can spawn this. Now I'll do one more, but then I'm going to pause the video and I'll do the other ones offline because I don't think you need to see me do this, like I said, 5 or 6 times, certainly not 11 times. So we'll do one more. So the next one is when you combine cherries, they become strawberries. So we'll do a strawberry, but you don't have to do it in this order. We'll delete the cherry since we already saved it here. And then it's rinse and repeat. Add component, physics 2D. Polygon collider 2D. Add component, physics 2D. Rigid body 2D. That's it. And we'll do one more. So we'll drag this into the scene. Delete the one there. And then I believe the strawberries become grapes. So we'll drag the grape here. Add component, physics 2D. Polygon 2D. Add component, physics 2D. Rigid body 2D. I'm intentionally droning on and on and on because I'm trying to impress upon you at this point you're already seeing the rinse and repeat. We just did the same steps 3 times, okay? So we drag this into the scene. I am going to pause the video. I'll do the remaining fruits and then I'll be right back, okay? Okay, and I'm back and I'm going to do the last one now. We will do the watermelon. So we drop the watermelon into the scene. we go to add component, we go physics 2D, we go polygon collider, we go add component, we go physics, oops, sorry about that, I hit the wrong physics, physics 2D, and then we go rigid body. And then we drag that into the scene. So I think I made either 6 or 7. Let's take a quick look. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, I made 7. Okay, so the next thing is let's just quickly test that the physics works. I'm just going to drag one of these into the scene. And then we're going to just let it drop. It's fine. Probably a little bit too slow, so we might wind up changing the gravity after all, but that's game balance. I'm not going to worry about that. So right now, everything is too big. So let's start with the cherries since they're the first one, and let's try making them like 10%. And remember, this is 2D, so you can really ignore the Z for most things. So let's see. Actually, that looks... There we go. It hadn't adjusted yet. So that looks to be, I think, just about right. Yeah, I think that's good. All right, so now each one is just going to be slightly bigger than that. So again, what I did is I clicked on the prefab and I changed the scale of the X and the Y, and you could ignore the Z because again, it's two-dimensional only. So for each progressive fruit, you're going to be a little bit bigger. Again, the exact size, that's game balance. So we'll do the icon, excuse me, the strawberry, and we'll do say 0.15. And then strawberries will become grapes. So we'll do 0.2, 0.2. And some of the shapes in the original game seem to get bigger quicker. Like the first couple don't seem to get much bigger, and then the other ones get like exponentially bigger. Well, maybe not exponentially, but they get bigger faster. So for the grapes, we did 0.2. So we have cherries, strawberry, grapes. We'll then have the grape become, I guess, an orange. And let's jump right up to 0.3. We know 0.1 is way too big because it's so huge in the screen. And then we'll say the orange will become a pear, and we'll make that 0.4. And then we will say that the apple, actually, I think it's different order. I think apple comes before a pear, but I'm not going to worry about it. 0.5. And then this will be like 0.7. And now we're just going to make sure I did not miss any. So we're just going to drag these into the scene. So we're going to do cherry. And then we do strawberry. Yep, it's definitely bigger. And then we're going to do, and this is just testing. I'm just going to delete these just so there's no confusion. And then we're going to do grape. And then we're going to do, I believe I said orange. So that one's a bit of a jump. We might want to reconsider that size. And then we do pear. And then we do apple. And then we do melon. So yeah, I think that's just about right. Now, the game as it's made is not full screen. It's kind of like Tetris where it's in the middle. So we might still have to shrink a few of these. But again, it's just the idea of having progressive size. So there's no absolute right or wrong. It's just about getting each fruit to be progressively bigger. So I might actually tweak, like this might be a little bit too big and this might be a little bit too big. Okay, so we have our fruits. Now what we need is we need the environment for the fruits to be dropped in. So this I'm just going to make in real time. So we'll go up to game object, we'll go to 2D object, we'll go to sprites, we'll go to square, And then we'll make a couple of these. So we'll make this one like 10. That's actually almost right. Let's make that 8. And then we want some space up the top here for the image. In the original game, there's like a cloud that you move back and forth to drop the fruit. So you need a little bit of room at the top. So actually, let's make this 7. And then what we'll do is we will add physics 2D. This should seem familiar. We're going to do polygon collider. And we're going to now copy and paste this. And we're going to rotate this. And we're going to use this for the bottom part of the And if I felt like doing the math, I wouldn't have to actually do it this way. I could just check the origin and line it up. But again, we're just doing the broad strokes at the moment. And we'll do that. And now we have the area to drop our fruit in. Now I think it's probably too small, right? Yes, the melon wouldn't fit into that. So what we'll do, we'll actually make it wider for our version. And again, you don't want to rip off something that's already existing. So you would certainly want to make some tweaks to the way the game works. But I want it to be close because that's the other point, is trying to demonstrate how to do this. So if we make this 13, we can just adjust this. And now how does the watermelon look? So that's pretty good because in the original game, the watermelon is actually like 3/4 of the width. So that's fine. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have the cloud at the top moving back and forth. And that's where we're actually going to start some coding. So let's do that now. I'm just going to pause the video briefly so I can navigate to where I have the cloud. It's actually part of the same package. Okay, here's the cloud. So we're going to drag this into the scene. And obviously that's way too big. So let's make this like 0.4 and 0.2. So it doesn't need to be particularly tall. Okay, we can make that a little short, little less. There. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start with coding, and we're now going to add a script to this. So we're going to use a rigid body just like the other objects, but we're not going to apply gravity. So add component physics 2D. Rigid body 2D, and we're not going to use gravity, so gravity scale will be 0. We might also have to make another adjustment to make sure that it doesn't get bumped by the fruit. Actually, I suppose we could just make this. This doesn't have a collider, so we'll hold off adding a collider. We'll see if physics 2D requires a collider or not. I remember I haven't done a 2D game in a little while. The physics can be a little bit wonky. If you've seen the gameplay, I can't be 100% certain, but I'm almost certain that the original game was made in Unity because the physics are kind of broken. Like you'll notice the fruit are just randomly spinning in perpetuity. Like the fruit is just like spinning for no particular reason, and that's not how physics works. So I wouldn't be surprised if they made this in Unity. Okay, so right click, create C#, and we'll call this cloud con for cloud control. You can call it whatever you want. The naming is for your benefit to communicate. To communicate to you what it does. Sorry, it was still compiling. Now I can add it. Okay, so let's open this up. And we'll get rid of this. We'll get rid of this. When you see the double forward slash, that's just a remark statement. So it's basically for inline documentation. So if you don't need the documentation, you don't have to leave it there. Hey, it's me from about 10 minutes later. So I walked through the code, I made a couple mistakes, and I didn't want to confuse you guys. So I'm just going to paste it and then we'll walk through it. That way, at least you guys don't have to see me type it out this time. So what we're going to do is we're going to do three things. We're going to check to see if the A key is pressed. If it is, then we want the cloud to move left. We're going to check to see if the D key is pressed. If it is, then the cloud will move right. And we're going to check to see if neither key is pressed, and then it will not move at all. And we're going to do that by applying velocity to the 2D rigid body. So let's paste it, and we'll take that each section. So here's the check to see if A is pressed. Pretty straightforward. We're looking for input. We're looking for get key. So not get key down. Get key down is only true for the first frame that the key is down. Get key looks for an ongoing condition. So as long as A is held down, we want something to happen. Get component rigid body 2D. Remember, 2D, not just rigid body, because it's the 2D variant. We're going to apply velocity, and again, it's vector 2, not vector 3, and we're going to move -2. You can choose whatever velocity you want. For a game like this, it's not reflex-based, so who cares what the exact velocity is? It's not really a game balance issue. Then rinse and repeat. If input.getKey D is pressed, get component, rigid body 2D, velocity. This time it's going to be +2. So you're moving +2 along the x-axis. And by the way, what this is a measure of, this is unity units per second. How much is a unity unit? From 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3. So you know how you have transform here, and you could do 1, 2, 3, -5, -10. Those are unity units. So 0 to 1 is 1 unity unit. So velocity of +1 would travel the object from from 0 to 1 in 1 second. So this is unity units per second. So -2 per second, +2 per second. And then this says if neither one is pressed, then don't move at all. Now, as you can see, there's an exclamation point here. If you're not familiar with that, an exclamation point is basically the way that C# says not. So if you're saying something is not equal, you do exclamation point equal. I don't know if any other programming languages use that, but C# does. Well, there's no equal sign here, so you're just putting the exclamation point in front of the entire condition. You're saying, oops, sorry, didn't mean to drag that. This is saying if this whole thing is not true, and if this whole thing is not true, then have 0 velocity. Because if you don't do this, whatever the last condition was would keep going on and on and on. Now, this also doesn't put any kind of controls for left to right constraint. So we'll have to take a look at that. But I think we'll wait for the next video for that because we've done quite a bit and I don't want the video to be too long. And it has nothing to do with monetization because I've long since demonetized the channel, so there's no commercial breaks. I just want this to be digestible to you guys. Okay, so we're going to press A, and it moves. I let go, it stops. Press D, it moves. I let go, and it stops. And like I said, we're going to do some kind of like hard stop here and here. Now, in the Nintendo Switch game, I believe that's where Suika comes from, I've actually seen a glitch where the cloud jumps all the way to the wrong side. So we're going to put code there so that doesn't happen. Okay, so I'm going to stop there and we're going to see if there's actually any interest in this. Like I said, for about 2 weeks now, I've seen the VTubers just hammering on this game day after day after day. So I thought some of you might be interested in seeing how to do it. Believe it or not, we probably only have maybe 30 to 40 more minutes of coding to go to have it done because next is going to be a key press to spawn the fruit. We already put the physics in place, so there's nothing else to do for that. Basically, the fruit will collide, the fruit will stack, and then we just have to put code to check for the fruit actually actually turning into the replacement fruit. And then they will have like a basic scoring system. So like 45 minutes of coding left. Okay, that should about do it for now. I hope you found this interesting, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.